Here we go with the fourth video for Chapter 1. We'll primarily cover kingdoms of organisms in this screencast. Remember from the third screencast that taxonomists have divided organisms into three different domains: Archaea, Bacteria, and Eukarya. Each domain contains one or more kingdoms. We're going to ignore the Archaea and discuss 5 kingdoms of organisms. The domain Bacteria contains one kingdom, Monera. All bacteria, and also all archaeans, have cells without nuclei. They have DNA in their cells, it's just not separated from the rest of the cell in a different compartment called the nucleus. Cells lacking a nucleus are referred to as prokaryotic. All bacteria and extremophiles are prokaryotic. Archaeans are placed in a separate kingdom, as well as a separate domain, in part because their metabolism is so different from that of the bacteria. Here's some examples of different kinds of monerans, commonly called bacteria. The remaining 4 kingdoms we'll discuss belong to the domain Eukarya. They're all eukaryotic, meaning that they have nuclei in their cells. Protistans are single-celled or have bodies composed of colonies of similar cells. They typically have very little to no tissue differentiation. Some are very plant-like, for example algae, while others are animal-like, for example amoebas. Here on the upper left is an example of an amoeba. Next to it we see an euglena. The lower left has a type of algae called Spirogyra, and this final one is commonly called waternet. Fungi is the second kingdom in the domain Eukarya. Unlike protistans, fungi are almost always multicellular. They do have some cellular specialization. Like plants, their cells are surrounded by a cell wall. Like animals, none of them can do photosynthesis. They typically feed on the bodies or the remains of other organisms. Plantae is the third kingdom in the domain Eukarya. Like fungi, plants are eukaryotic, they're multicellular, they have different kinds of tissues, their cells are surrounded by cell walls, and almost all of them are capable of doing photosynthesis. The last kingdom we'll discuss is the kingdom Animalia. All animals, including humans, belong to this kingdom. They're eukaryotic, multicellular, tissue differentiation is obvious, but they don't have a cell wall, and none of them can do photosynthesis. Continuing with our taxonomic categories, each kingdom contains one or more phyla. Phyla are divided up into classes. Each class has one or more orders. Orders contain families. Families are divided into genera, and each genus contains one or more species. With this table, I hope to illustrate more about the hierarchy of taxonomic groups. I've included 4 species: humans, chimpanzees, mallards, and also wild roses. The more categories 2 organisms share in common, the more closely related they are. Of these 4, humans and chimpanzees are the most closely related. They share all of these categories in common. Which are the least similar of the 4? Also, I want you to notice that once 2 taxa diverge, all the categories below must also be different. I'd like to end this video with 3 terms your textbook author included in this chapter. We'll discuss these later in the semester. Adaptation can be used as a noun or as a verb. As a verb, adaptation is a process of a species acquiring new characteristics which help it to survive and to reproduce in its environment. Used as a noun, adaptation is the beneficial characteristic. Biodiversity is a measure of the number of different kinds of species in an area and their relative abundances. Ecologists are concerned about biodiversity because increased biodiversity is often associated with increased ecosystem stability. Finally, evolution. Evolution is a change in the genetic composition of a population. Populations evolve, not individuals. Changes in genetic composition result in the accumulation of new characteristics, in other words, new adaptations. This ends our 4th video.